My name is Alex Harper, 32 years old, and I was staring into the abyss. A year of unemployment had drained my savings. Each rejection email a fresh wound. Portland, the Devised, Oregon, with its endless rain and gray skies, mirrored my despair. I'd once led multi-million-dollar projects at a corporate titan, but now I was clawing my way back at Cascade Logistics, a mid-sized firm with 50 employees, handling international shipping contracts worth tens of millions. It was a lifeline, but it came with a price. Harold Bennett, the office manager who ruled like a petty tyrant. Harold, 16, was a fossil from Cascade's origins. He'd helped the owner grow it from a one-man shop to a $50 million operation. But 3 decades later, he was stuck in the 90s, obsessed with paper logs and outdated routes, refusing to touch new systems. He knew the business when it suited him. Lately, clients were fuming over delayed shipments, and whispers of a $10 million contract on the brink haunted the office. Harold's response: blame everyone else and complain about his workload. That's where I got dragged in. I was hired for basic admin tasks, data entry, scheduling, nothing my master's degree prepared me for. My friend Jake, a logistics coordinator, warned me before my first day. Alex, keep your head down, he whispered in the misty parking lot. Hide your corporate experience. This place is a jungle, and Harold's the predator. I buried my resume's highlights. But Harold sensed a challenge the moment I walked through the door. The office was a claustrophobic box of cubicles, lit by flickering fluorescence, smelling of burnt coffee and old carpet. Harold's desk was a fortress of binders and yellowed forms. His wiry gray hair a mess, his eyes sharp as daggers. So, you're the new guy, he said, his voice laced with contempt. I nodded, forcing a smile, but I felt it. A hunter eyeing his prey. This wasn't a job. It was survival. 3 months in, they assigned me to Harold for 4 hours a day to lighten his load. Cascade was bleeding, clients raged over late deliveries, and the owner was under pressure to save a massive contract. Harold pointed fingers at everyone but himself, and I became his favorite target. You're here to clean up this mess, he barked, shoving a stack of client lists at me. Don't mess it up. Working with Harold was like walking a tightrope over a pit of spikes. He'd toss me tasks like calling clients for shipment details, with half the instructions missing. I'd spend hours chasing data, only for him to say, "Oh, I forgot. You need customs codes too." Back to square one. I filled out his archaic forms, and he'd criticize my handwriting. Sloppy, he'd snap, though it was flawless. When I typed them to save time, he accused me of showing off. Every error, his errors, became my fault. Once a misrouted shipment nearly cost me my job. I stood in the owner's office, palms sweaty, as Harold smirked from the sidelines. No HR, no backup. He was the owner's confidant. I was nothing. His petty jabs stung deeper. Lunch was my sanctuary, but Harold would ask me to grab him food, then forget to pay the full amount. $1 short here, 2 there, it piled up. I started carrying exact change, forcing him to scrounge for coins. He never repaid the backlog, so I brought sandwiches, eating alone in a nearby park, reading to escape. Where do you go at lunch? He'd demand, as if he owned my time. Then there was the soda. I'm a Coke fiend, stashing 12 packs in the office fridge since the building's vending machine was a ripoff. When it broke, Harold didn't care. He knew I had soda. Alex, mind if I grab one? He'd say, his fake charm barely hiding his entitlement. I couldn't say no. He'd see the cans. 2, 3 times a week. He'd take one, sometimes tossing a crumpled dollar. Feel bad about your soda. He'd laugh, grabbing my last can. Didn't know it was the last one. Right, didn't know. Harold. I was trapped. My bank account was screaming, and quitting wasn't an option. Harold's constant criticism, his thefts, his smugness, they were crushing me. But then, the frustration, late one night, sorting through old shipment logs, I found something, a buried report, a client's complaint hidden in a deleted email chain. Harold's name was everywhere, tied to a routing error that could cost Cascade a $10 million contract. My heart raced. This wasn't just a mistake, it was a cover-up, and it could ruin the company. I had him. I just needed a plan to turn his game against him, and maybe, just maybe, claim the victory I deserved. That night, staring at the incriminating email chain on my laptop, I felt a spark ignite. Harold's cover-up, a routing error buried in deleted files, could cost Cascade Logistics $10 million. A major client, Pacific Imports, was threatening to pull their contract after a shipment went disastrously off course, delayed by weeks and racking up penalties. Harold's name was all over the logs, but he'd pinned the blame on a junior coordinator, claiming sloppy work. My hands trembled. This wasn't just a chance to expose him. It was a shot to turn the tables and rewrite my story at Cascade. But I had to be smart. Harold had the owner's trust. Built over 30 years, I was a nobody, a 32-year-old admin scraping by after a year of unemployment. One wrong move, and I'd be out the door, my savings already a ghost. Cascade's 50-person office had no HR, no safety net. Harold's smug face, his petty thefts of my soda, his short-changed lunch payments, they fueled me. I wasn't just fighting for justice. This was personal. I needed a plan that would expose his incompetence, save the company, and most importantly, leave him no room to slither away. First, I needed evidence. The deleted email was a start, but it wasn't enough. Harold was sloppy but cunning, always covering his tracks just enough to dodge accountability. I spent nights digging through old shipment logs, cross-referencing routes and delivery dates, buried in a dusty binder. I found it. A handwritten note from Harold approving a shortcut route through a restricted zone. A decision that caused the delay. The client's complaint, buried in a server folder marked archive, confirmed it. Pacific Imports had demanded answers, and Harold had lied, blaming the team. The numbers were staggering. $10 million in penalties and lost business. My heart pounded. This was dynamite, but exposing Harold outright would backfire. He'd spin it, paint me as a troublemaker. I needed allies. The office was a pressure cooker. Everyone felt Harold's wrath. From his nitpicking to his habit of hogging credit, I started with Jake, my friend who'd warned me about Harold. Over coffee in the park, I showed him the email. His eyes widened. Alex, this could sink him, he whispered, but we need to be careful. Harold's got the owner wrapped around his finger. I nodded. We don't just expose him. We fix this mess and make it impossible for him to dodge. Jake brought in Sarah, a sharp logistics analyst who'd been burned by Harold's blame games. She'd caught him fudging reports before, but stayed quiet to keep her job. I'm in, she said, her voice steely. He's been coasting too long. We formed a quiet alliance, meeting after hours at a diner across town. Our goal, save the Pacific Imports contract and show the owner, Mr. Callahan, that Harold's negligence was the real problem. But we'd do it as a team, not as snitches. The plan was audacious but elegant. I'd use my corporate experience, hidden until now, to overhaul the routing system Harold had neglected. His outdated methods, reliant on paper logs and gut instinct, were a liability. I spent weeks analyzing data, mapping efficient routes, and drafting a proposal to streamline Cascade's operations. It wasn't just about fixing the $10 million mistake. It was about proving the company could thrive without Harold's chaos. Sarah crunched numbers, showing how my routes could cut costs by 15%. Jake vetted the plan with drivers, ensuring it was practical. We worked in secret, knowing one leak could ruin us. To keep Harold off my scent, I played the dutiful assistant. When he barked orders, I nodded, biting back my frustration. He'd still grab my Cokes from the fridge, tossing $1 with that infuriating smirk. Thanks, kid. Isowere Soman, he'd say, oblivious to the storm brewing. On Serbisurnthin, he criticized a report I'd typed, saying, "This is why you'll never be more than an admin." I smiled, my blood boiling. But I was biding my time. Every snide comment, every stolen soda, fueled my resolve. The hardest part was the lunch hustle. Harold kept asking me to grab him food, always shorting me $1 or $2. I'd carry exact change, forcing him to fumble for coins. But the debts piled up. One day, fed up, I forgot his order entirely. Must have slipped my mind. I said, mimicking his own excuses. His eyes narrowed. But he couldn't call me out without looking petty. I started eating in the park again, sketching out our plan between bites of my sandwich. Harold's grip was slipping, and I could feel it. Our breakthrough came when Sarah found a second email, a direct order from Harold to ignore Pacific Imports' routing specs to save time. It was the smoking gun. Combined with my proposal, we had everything. Proof of his failure and a solution to save the contract. But timing was critical. Pacific Imports was set to review their contract in 2 weeks. If we didn't act, Cascade could lose $10 million, and Harold would pin it on us. We decided to present our findings as a team effort. I drafted a report, sleek and professional, outlining the routing error, its consequences, and our new system to fix it. To protect ourselves, we framed it as a team initiative to improve operations. Signed by me, Jakakarnarisur, Sarah, Nasuman, and 3 other colleagues who joined our cause. Harold's name was mentioned only in the context of the original error, backed by undeniable evidence. The report was a masterpiece, clear, data-driven, and impossible to ignore. It wasn't just about exposing Harold, it was about showing Mr. Callahan what we could do. The night before the presentation, I barely slept. My tiny apartment felt like a war room, papers scattered across the table. I rehearsed every word, knowing Harold would fight back. He'd built his empire on loyalty and excuses, but I was betting on truth and results. If this worked, we'd save the company and show Harold for what he was. If it failed, I'd be out of a job, back to square one. But I wasn't the same desperate Alex who'd walked into Cascade months ago. I was ready to fight. The next morning, I walked into the office, the report tucked under my arm. Harold was at his desk, sipping my Coke. Oblivious to the storm about to hit, I caught Jake's eye across the room. Then Sarah's. They nodded, a silent signal. We were in this together. As I prepared to face Mr. Callahan, I felt a surge of adrenaline. This wasn't just revenge, it was a revolution. Harold had underestimated me, and that was his biggest mistake. The stage was set, and I was ready to make him pay, not with anger, but with brilliance. The air in Cascade Logistics conference room felt electric as I stood before Mr. Callahan. The owner, clutching our team's report. My heart pounded, but my resolve was ironclad. Harold sat across the table, sipping my Coke, his smug grin oblivious to the storm about to break. For months, I'd endured his jabs, his criticism, his shortchanged lunch payments, his entitled grabs at my soda. Now, his masum. At 32, after clawing my way back from unemployment, I was ready to turn the tables. Harold's $10 million cover-up, a routing error that nearly lost us Pacific Imports, was about to be exposed. And I was holding the key. Mr. Callahan Niyoetu, a wiry man in his 50s with a no-nonsense stare, scanned the room. Jake, Sari, Surinowan, Sir, and 3 other colleagues sat beside me. Our alliance forged in secret. The report, signed by all 6 of us, lay on the table, a 20-page masterpiece detailing Harold's mistake, its $10 million consequences, and our plan to save the contract. I took a deep breath. Mr. Callahan, I began, my voice steady. We've identified an issue with the Pacific Imports shipment and a solution to secure their trust. Harold's eyes narrowed, but I pressed on. I walked the room through the evidence, the buried complaint, the deleted email where Harold ordered a risky shortcut route, the handwritten note approving it. Gasps rippled through the team as I projected the documents on the screen. This error, I said, cost us weeks of delays and $10 million in penalties. But we've developed a new routing system to prevent this and win back Pacific Imports. Sarah chimed in, presenting data showing our plan could cut costs by 15%. Jake added driver feedback, proving it was feasible. The room buzzed with excitement. Harold's face turned red. This is nonsense, he sputtered. The team botched that shipment. Not me, but his voice wavered. Mr. Callahan held up a hand, his eyes locked on the report. Harold, this has your name on it. Explain. Harold fumbled, blaming miscommunication, but the evidence was ironclad. The room fell silent as Mr. Callahan read the email aloud, Harold's own words damning him. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes, no smirk, no excuses. I seized the moment. Our new system, I said, uses real-time data and optimized routes to ensure this never happens again. We've already tested it on smaller shipments, and Pacific Imports is open to a meeting if we implement it by next week. Mr. Callahan nodded, impressed. Eterno. Who led this? He asked. Jake pointed to me. Alex. He saw the problem and rallied us. I felt a surge of pride but kept my face neutral. This wasn't about gloating. It was about results. The meeting ended with a directive: implement the new system immediately. Mr. Callahan called me into his office afterward. Alex, he said, you've shown leadership. I'm promoting you to operations manager, effective next week. You'll oversee routing and report directly to me, same level as Harold. My jaw dropped. Operations manager, equal to Harold, with a salary to match and real authority. I thanked him, my voice steady despite the fireworks in my chest. As I left, I caught Harold's glare from his desk. For once, he said nothing. The next week was a blur. We rolled out the new system, and Pacific Imports was thrilled, renewing their $10 million contract with a bonus for our proactive approach. The office buzzed with relief. Jobs were safe, and the team's morale soared. Harold, however, was a ghost of himself. Forced to acknowledge his mistake in a company-wide email, he lost the owner's blind trust. His petty jabs stopped. No more soda thefts. No more lunch hustles. When I brought my 12-pack of Coke, it stayed untouched in the fridge. I'd catch him staring, his fortress of binders now a crumbling relic. But I wasn't done. To seal the victory, I organized a team lunch to celebrate the contract, paying for everyone except Harold. When he asked to join, I handed him the bill with a smile. Sorry, Harold, I forgot to cover you. Must have slipped my mind. His face twitched, but he paid, fumbling for exact change just like I used to. The team stifled laughs, and I felt a quiet thrill. Revenge didn't need venom, it needed precision. When the pandemic hit, Harold announced he'd work from home and soon retired, citing health reasons. I didn't buy it. He'd lost his grip on Cascade, and my promotion had shifted the power. As operations manager, I streamlined processes, earning the team's respect and Mr. Callahan's trust. The office, once a pressure cooker, felt lighter. Jake and Sarah became my right-hand allies, and we turned Cascade into a place where ideas thrived, not egos. On my last day of the year, I cleaned out my desk, finding an old Coke can tucked in a drawer. I laughed, remembering Harold's smug grabs. I tossed it in the recycling bin, the clink echoing like a final note of victory. Standing in the now quiet office, I realized what I'd done. I hadn't just exposed Harold's $10 million mistake or saved the company. I'd turned my lowest point, unemployment, desperation, and a tyrant's shadow into a triumph. I'd walked into Cascade a nobody, but I was leaving a leader. This wasn't about anger or spite. It was about outsmarting a bully with brains, not fists. Harold underestimated me, but I used his own game against him, rallying a team, saving a contract, and earning a seat at the table. If you're stuck under someone like Harold, don't lash out. Plan, decision, to be me or once, persist, and prove them wrong. That's the kind of revenge that lasts, one that makes you rise while they fade. And trust me, when you pull it off, you'll stand there, heart racing, thinking, "Way wana machuai na sa wa say you're one."